How you doing? Welcome back. Today we're going to do a project around the house, and that's trimming out some things that we've kind of left while we were doing some of the tile. And we kind of sat back and went, you know what? We never did tell you about the story on how we got here from when we started from the beginning 3 years ago. So that's what we're going to do today, is kind of walk you through that process of where we came from, how we got here, the trials and the tribulations we went through, and the things that we had to do and then couldn't do because of lack of material. And so we're going to walk you through that whole journey that we went through, and I hope you join us today.
In life, all of the really good things begin with a dream. Our dream began when we decided it was time to build our little off-grid home. A year later, we found ourselves putting the first stakes in the ground on top of our hill with the lovely view. As spring arrived, we spent time combing auctions, secondhand stores, and Craigslist to find the items we needed to build. We even bartered for some of the more beautiful things we got for our home. We worked, we prayed, we dreamed, we planned, and suddenly it was time to dig up the dirt and turn our efforts into something tangible.
So when we were gathering all these materials to start our house, we were trying to figure out how we were going to go about it. And my father-in-law volunteered his time to come up and not just only help me build it, but to help me learn and teach me ways that are better on how to build a house and how to make it square and to build things that I've never been able to do. And it was a pretty neat blessing that some people overlook when things are not going your way, but all of a sudden somebody steps in and helps. And it's been grateful to us and for Jenny's dad to be here and help us with this a lot. And so that's where we started, is with the materials and Jenny's dad helping us design it, and he helped us build it from the ground up.
The summer that we started our build was a particularly bad one for forest fires in Idaho. Many of the long, hot days were spent dealing with the smoke and taking breaks in the shade by the little tent and travel trailer we stayed in that summer. I will always look back with fondness on that time. Every day was hard, but every day was completely rewarding. From our vantage point, we watched calves being born, the hay maturing, and the bales ready to be picked up. The season passed without us missing anything. It was a season of awareness. As the end of the warm weather approached, there was a day I went out of town and left Seth to hold down the fort, and that is exactly what he wound up doing. A fierce storm moved in that night, and if it hadn't been for his own weight and the weight of our dog, our little tent would have blown right off our hill. We knew then that it was time to move inside the shell of our little house.
In the 3 years that we have been building our house here on the homestead, there's a lot of things that have happened, and we've had some pretty good hard winters that kept us from building it really fast, and some money issues and material issues, and there's been things that's happened here on the homestead with buildings collapsing and taking care of animals, and just the things that I've taken upon after my grandpa died, that it's been a little slow process of building our house, which is okay, because then it allows us to build things slower and right. And my grandpa always taught me how to do it right the first time and not have to tear it back down and redo it. So that's something that we've kind of been running with, is we should do this correctly and right. So before my grandpa passed away, he came up to the house and was looking at it while we were building it, and when we put this big beam down the center of the house, he saw that day, a couple days before he passed away, and he said, this house will stand for 100 years. And that really did something to us, that we knew that we were on the right path, and which excited us, and knowing that my grandpa knew that we were building it correctly.
Our families are where we gain our inspiration. We often find ourselves saying, if they could do this, then so can we. So we pressed on. We learned how to cook delicious meals on a wood stove, and we made do with the spaces that we had somewhat completed. The living space served many purposes during this time, including kitchen, workshop, and storage. Living in the place you are building slows things down, but it also keeps the projects right in front of your nose. Then there was the day I got a call from Seth. He had accidentally stabbed himself in the leg with his knife while he was feeding the animals. Of course, he didn't go to the hospital, and I found myself spending the next few weeks keeping the wound clean and closed, monitoring for infection. This would be a chore in and of itself, but working by lantern light added a bit of extra adventure to it. We live at a mile high, so in the winter, often our projects come to a standstill. Instead of building, completing, and moving forward, we spend months clearing snow, shoveling roofs, feeding animals, and just staying warm. On the few clear, dry days, we might get some small projects done. But until it is safe to pull the tools out into the weather, we have to be content with where we are once the winter arrives. But once the weather becomes lovely again, we dig in and get as much done as we can. We live by the philosophy of repurposing and restoring whenever possible. Giving new life to old things brings us joy. And knowing that our bathtub was rescued from a 100-plus-year-old hotel in Boise, and our roofing material was destined for the dump before we salvaged it, is only the beginning of the stories that the very walls of our house have to tell. It is because of these stories we feel compelled to share with you. Our journey is only unique because we are the ones living it. How beautiful it would be to know others set out to make similar memories because they could see that this life is possible. Now, as our house is slowly becoming a home, we've begun to dream about what is next. There will still be projects inside our little house, but I can't help but look out my window and wonder what the shadows of the future hold. I wonder what we will be looking back on and what we will be telling stories about in the future.
So this is where our story continues. And if you would like to follow us onto our next chapter, like and subscribe, and please share the video, guys. And we appreciate you hanging with us today.